Hello, kippers and stingrays. Ranger Bill here. Any of y'all keeping track on how many times I start with kippers versus stingrays and vice versa? I know you always question my loyalties. So I had planned on going down to the salt marshes and hiking down there today and reading a book called Hope is Here. But with the winds gradually building throughout the day, I can get to sounding like an interstate down there on the marsh. And they're threatening to have some severe weather tonight in this area. I don't know. It's looking pretty beautiful right now, but it is quite breezy. So I'm here on the farm in a quiet spot, or one of the quieter spots, and a place I come to look at birds and observe whatever nature has to behold from each day. And I thought that with the sounds being what they were, it'd be a nice day to come up with a book called Tree of Birds. And that's a cute little story. You might, it's from Susan Meddaugh. I realized I have a number of copies of it, and most of them have words underlined or circled. So it may be one that you're familiar with and that you've already used in school, but it was a cute little story nonetheless. And as we get into the story, I know that a couple of you and your parents will probably wonder, oh my goodness, what a terrible message. We must tell them the right way to handle injured animals and birds, and I will talk about that. Rest you, so just relax and enjoy the story for what it's worth, and then we'll cover that at the end. But before I get started with that, um, I got to reading, as I always do, some historical accounts of things. One of them, which was captured in Henry A. Weiss's Yesteryears on the Eastern Shore, talks about being snowbound on the Eastern Shore. And coming into the picture down below is Malcolm, the farm cat that I talk about from time to time. So he likes birds too. He's kind of noisy, but he can do what he do. So anyway, I wanted to read from this real quick. So I thought it was relevant to the situation, and let your parents know that think about them as well. So, school days. Eventually, you think I'd catch on and start putting these on. School days. School days, school days, dear old golden rule days. Reading and writing and arithmetic, taught to the tune of a hickory stick. And those long, long days ago on Virginia's Eastern Shore, reading and writing and arithmetic were taught and taught very thoroughly, but not to the tune of a hickory stick. Education in Virginia, as in most of the southern states, was a family affair, or perhaps a community affair. Something the state had nothing whatever to do with. From the colonial days on, families had their tutor or governess, which meant these families were only following the practice and custom of England, from whence they come. We sometimes have to remember that our colonial forefathers were Englishmen first and Virginians second, and that they simply put into practice into the new country methods of living they had known in the old country. In England, the tutor or the schoolmaster was frequently the rector of the church in the community. So as communities were developed and became large enough to establish a church, the rector would probably find that a part of his duty was to establish a school for the children in his parish. Again, our forefathers were doing just what their fathers had done before them, and during the colonial period, there seemed to be little reason for changing things. Of course, changes came, just as they are coming today. Changes over which the average person has little control. All that we can do is to accept the changes as they come. Even though we may not like the changes, sooner or later we go along with them, and almost before we know it, we are taking the changes just as a matter of course. And of course, the next step is to say, why? Things have always been that way. So I just want to throw that in real quickly and Although we're all in a time that none of us had ever imagined, um, it's unprecedented, really. So it's kind of hard to figure out what to do next. Um, but it seems like we are doing what's next, which is to continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to live and prosper and love. And so, with that, I want to switch over to a cute little story called Tree of Birds. It is a fictional story, and it is not a recommendation or a recipe on how to properly handle injured animals should you come across them. There are processes for that. There are agencies to call, and we can look those up. You can always reach out to me. But nonetheless, it's a cute little story. So, A Tree of Birds by Susan Meddaugh. Harry didn't see the car hit the bird. He heard a soft thunk. When he turned around, there she was. She wasn't dead, but her wing didn't look quite right, so he picked her up and carried her home. "Oh, Mom," said Harry. "Oh, my," said Harry's mother. "Her name is Sally," Harry told her. Harry took good care of Sally. He taped her wings so that it would heal. He went to the pet store and he bought her food. And he went to the library to take out some books about birds. "Did you know you're a green-tufted tropical?" he asked Sally. "You're supposed to be way down south this time of year. Could weather kill you?" Days passed and Sally's wing was quickly healing, but Sally stood in the window watching the leaves fall and looking sad. Harry's mother said, "Sally isn't eating very much. Maybe she's tired of worms," said Harry. "Maybe she'd like some flies for a change. Maybe she's lonely," said his mother. "Sally is a wild bird," she said. "You can't keep her forever, you know. She belongs with her friends." "I'm her friend," said Harry. The next day, Harry had the strangest feeling that he was being followed. But every time he turned around, no one was there. That afternoon, he noticed something unusual outside his window. With all the trees were losing their leaves, one tree was getting greener and greener, bright tropical green. Harry went outside to investigate. When he got close to the tree, he saw that it wasn't covered with leaves. It was a tree full of birds, green-tufted tropicals, just like Sally. They made Harry uncomfortable, so he went back in the house. The next morning, the birds followed Harry to school. They waited for him outside. When school was over, they followed him home. Every night, the birds perched in the tree outside Harry's window. Every day, they followed him everywhere he went. Harry knew what they wanted. "You can't have Sally," he told them. The days got colder. The birds stayed on. It seemed that nothing would convince them to fly south. Not wind, not rain, not Harry himself, but he tried. First, he tried to reason with them. "Sally is my bird," he explained. "I'm taking good care of her, so you can all go now." The birds didn't go anywhere. Harry tried to frighten the birds. "Meow, meow." The birds were not fooled. Harry pleaded with them. "Don't you know winter is coming? You've got to fly south before it's too late. You'll never survive the first snowstorm." Still, the birds wouldn't leave. As the days grew colder, Harry found himself checking the thermometer and listening to the weather reports. Then one morning, Harry heard the words he had been dreading. "Get out your snow shovels," said the weatherman. "A big storm's coming our way." Harry ran outside. The sky was definitely winter gray. The temperature was definitely dropping, and the green tufted tropicals were turning blue. "This is your last chance," he yelled at the tree birds. "Get out now before it snows." He shook a stick in the tree. He threw a rock. Not a bird moved. "Stupid, stupid birds," he screamed. "Don't blame me if you all freeze to death." Harry went to his room with a heavy heart. He saw Sally looking out at the tree of birds. "Oh, Sally," Harry said, "do you miss your friends so much?" At that moment, a single snowflake fell past Harry's window. Harry knew what he had to do. He opened the window. "Oh, Mom," said Harry. Oh, that's the end. So, cute little story. Again, it's fiction, and again, there are proper ways to deal with, handle, and report injured animals. Go to your parents first, and you can always turn to a teacher or myself or a ranger if you need to. Splinting their wings and trying to mend them back yourself is not the right course of action. Trust me. Okay, so before I say goodbye, spring break is upon us. And before you know it, next week actually, we will be on spring break. Have been on spring break, will be on spring break. I don't even know how to really process that, but my plan is to take that time nonetheless to continue to grow, to relax, to take it all in, and to read one of my favorite childhood books, which is The Witch of Pungo. It was given to me from my mother when I was a child. It explains life in colonial Virginia through some whimsical stories. I think there's 7 different stories in here, and they're quite unique to the coastal Virginia, Cape Henry, Williamsburg, places like that. And although they're based on actual history, actual people, actual events and locations, they are indeed just stories. And I grew up reading them and trying to recreate them all over what is Cape Henry. So if the travel regulations and such permit, I'm going to travel over there next week and hit some of the locations that are talked about in this book and read from those locations and try to share with you a little bit of what it was like growing up as Billy Dias at Cape Henry. And but if things change, we can't travel over there, well, I'll find a way here on the farm to make it work. So until then, miss you guys, love you, stay safe, keep growing, stay healthy, and take care of your parents too.